This is the business of Africa. If it's about Africa, then it's our business, bringing big and small business issues right to your doorstep. So many of us are familiar with the concept of financial outflows. However, or rather maybe, we don't speak enough of financial inflows. And one of the sources of financial inflows are remittances to the African continent. According to the African Development Bank, remittances have become the single most significant non-debt source of financial inflows over the last decade. A working paper titled Unlocking Africa's Potential, Making Remittances Work for Development, the AFBD notes that the volumes of remittance inflows surpass other key external financial flows, such as foreign direct investment and foreign aid. Yes, people, more than foreign aid. So with all the billions being pumped back into the continent, what can be done with this pot of gold? Gondai Ronald Bangidza is a seasoned development practitioner, and he joins us now to look at the power of remittances. Thank you very much, Mr. Bangidza, for your time on the Business of Africa podcast. Maybe let's start with a basic understanding of the concept of remittances. What are we talking about?
Greetings, and thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. When we talk about remittances, we're talking basically about money inflows. When one goes and lives abroad, they work there, and when they choose to send money back home or send any kind of support back home, this is what we call remittance. It's sending money in forms of money, in forms of goods. These are ways of people how they remit back home. This process has been going on for a long time. It's becoming more popular now as globalization has occurred with the opening of borders in different countries and people migrating from Africa to the European countries to Australia. This is mainly because of skills that are shortened, like in the UK, they're in need of social workers and nurses, and Africa is producing a lot of them. Some people are traveling abroad to go work there, and then they send money back home. Or send goods back home. This is what we call remittance.
Okay. You mentioned the words, the kinds of support, suggesting that there's different types of remittances?
Yes, they are. Basically, if you do there are three types of remittances that are actually well known. There's the formal remittance. This is whereby money is sent through the banking systems, the money transfer system. This is just formally sent, whereby one can go into a financial institution that has interoperability between countries, like, for example, Western Union, Homelink. In Zimbabwe, there's the mobile money EcoCash. This is the formal way where one just goes or through the banks themselves, one can formally go into that institution, deposit money, and the person from the other side can receive money. That's one of the types. It's formal. There's also informal, whereby we can give, for example, there's a cross-border trader between Zambia and Botswana. He drives trucks, and you don't want to go through the banking system, but you know that the truck driver is a good friend of your neighbor. You say, here's some money, can you go give my neighbor? Or here's a package. You avoid, that's informal, because they're trying to also avoid the formal charges that are applied with formal remittances. And also there are those like in kind. Like I said, one can send goods back home, whereby you buy groceries in another country, and then you say, can you deliver these goods back home? That's another type of remittance that is there.
We'll get into the advantages and disadvantages of each, but I would like to maybe take a look now at the strategic importance of remittances to the continent.
Oh, yeah. Well, remittances to Africa as a whole is quite important, because as Africa, we're still regarded as a developing continent. Some countries are more developed than others, but we're still all described as a developing continent by the World Bank and also the IMF. These remittances, they play an important role because they help in poverty alleviation. Like, a person that means of sending money in those formal types that we just previously discussed, this mechanism helps reduce poverty in a household, in homes. This could be just giving them support every month to buy the basic goods, to pay their water bills, their electricity, buy seeds to plant in the garden. This is just the basic things that help. Another strategic importance is that it creates economic stability. If we look at the stats on remittances alone, like I can give, for example, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe in 2024, they had an annual inflow, if I'm not mistaken, it's 2.2 billion from 1.8 billion in 2023. That's a 22% increase. That means there's a lot of inflow of remittances. It's helping stabilize the economy, whereby government doesn't have a lot of liquid cash, but these remittances that are coming are creating more currency for the country. The disadvantage of that, if you don't, like Zimbabwe, we use a multi-currency regime. So our local currency sometimes gets a bit challenged by the inflows of the US dollar. But in some countries like Botswana, Zambia, and even South Africa, you immediately convert that foreign currency into the local currency because you're also trading at an international level. Zimbabwe is yet to do that. But another benefit of its strategic importance, I must say, it creates financial inclusivity. Sometimes most communities, they don't have means to get money, and they need some money to participate in a basic community program whereby they're saying, we have a neighborhood watch, we need some money, and they don't have a stable income. But if they're getting remittance from a relative abroad, they can be inclusive financially in those programs. So those are kind of the strategic importance.
So is it safe to say that we can draw a link between remittances and their contribution to GDP or overall economic growth?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that remittances are calculated part of GDP. In Zimbabwe, it's regarded as it's a 12% contributor to the national revenue inflow. This is from our trade, our imports, our export trades. It's quite it can be counted as something important. But on the no side is because it's not yet officially regarded as a channel. That's something that you can totally rely on. Like you can say there's the export trade. We can rely on that. There's the imports. We can rely on remittance. You can't totally rely on it because it does fluctuate. This just depends on the number of people who are outside and who are sending money back home.
Is that a missed opportunity? Because in 2022, total remittances flowing to the continent stood at $97.4 billion US dollars, or 3.3% of GDP. Are there any remittance funded initiatives, or are there initiatives that we can fund with remittances that could lead to a development of a certain sector or a development of peoples on the continent?
Yeah, I think it is. If you do look at this, there's an issue called the diaspora bond. This is a sovereign program by a country targeting its investors of its local people who are abroad. This just allows the locals in that country to invest in their home country in different development projects. It's not like a missed opportunity, but it is an opportunity that is there. In Africa, we can look at Nigeria. Nigeria did it. They did a diaspora bond in 2017, and it matured in 2022. And in total, the total amount that was remitted in that diaspora bond was about 300 million United States dollars, which was quite impressive because the advantage of such a program, and like you're saying, it's a missed opportunity because most countries are not thinking of that program. But because Nigeria did it, the advantage is they had a stable source of funding for most of their development projects back home. They also had a lower risk of default because if you look at going through the local people contributing back home, it's much more lower risk than going to the IMF or World Bank getting a loan because you might risk defaulting. But if you have your people on the ground pushing, it's a bit more inclusive. And this also strengthened the diaspora engagement between the Nigerians and their people abroad. However, one of the challenges I must note was a trust issue because you're depositing money. Most people, they tend not to trust governments with such huge amounts, but it does come with the territory. With money comes issues of trust, I must say. And then the issues of regulatory issues. If you look at the example I gave in Nigeria, their underwriters were Citigroup and Standard Bank, if I'm not mistaken. And the U.S. Exchange Securities were the regulatory authority in that matter. So you look at such issues because it was quite difficult sending money, and then you have these guys overseeing. So those are the main challenges. But yeah, it is a missed opportunity, I must say.
So when we spoke about the different kinds of remittances, you mentioned formal remittances. According to the Sustainable Development Goal or Development Goals, Goal 10, Target 10C, talks about reducing the cost of remittances to less than 3% by 2030. What is the cost of sending money back home for those in the diaspora as we speak today?
Oh, no, this is a very interesting area you've mentioned. It differs with the country. Like, for example, if I take a look at my country, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, the top three remittance countries are South Africa, the United Kingdom, and United States. I'll pick target the United States because the United States recently put a 5% tax on remittances sending back home to Zimbabwe. This can be looked at basically because we know the president of the United States, Donald Trump, he campaigned on the slogan, making America great again. Mm-hmm. He's trying to keep the American money in America. So he wants to make it expensive for you to send money back home, you know. So he wants the money to stay in America and circulate amongst themselves. That's one of his agendas. So as much as the SDG speaks of the 3%, it depends on the mechanism and how you're sending money to the former. Some charge at 10%, some charge 8%. EcoCash Diaspora, the one that I mentioned because I know it quite well, they reduced its percentage. I think it's now 1% from a person sending from the diaspora. But when it arrives in Zimbabwe, you can get the entire money that is there without any percentage that is deducted or charges. So it is a work in progress. It's something that has to be done through the financial systems, which have to work hard to try and reduce these charges.
Which financial systems are those? Would those be, foreign and local? Does everybody have to work together here?
Yeah, because if you look, for example, if you're saying you're in South Africa and you're using NetBank to send money to Zimbabwe, you do get a big charge. If it's a bank-to-bank, there's the interoperability that I mentioned, that Zimbabwe is under sanctions, and some of the regulatory issues are a bit tricky. So we have Western Union and Homelink. So Western Union is a bit costly because I know people were sending it's about 7 to 10% of amount, because if it's above $100, you're charged more. If it's above 200, you're charged more. The higher the amount, the higher the percentage you're going to be charged. So those are the institutions I can mention.
Okay. So what I'm hearing in terms of formal remittances, the risk there or the cost there is the cost of sending money. And then when we look at informal remittances, what are some of the challenges there?
Oh yeah, we've heard these stories before. Like if a truck driver suddenly has an accident, he's carrying some goods and might lose those goods. There are issues of theft, issue of traceability. In fact, because if you send money through the phone system and suddenly the person doesn't receive it, you can still trace it. You can go back to the institution, like, I sent money from here. Where did it go? And they can trace what happened to the money. With the informal system, you can't trace it. You can't the driver can give you an excuse, or whatever mechanism, the bus that you use, they can use an excuse like, no, we know nothing about it. So those are the issues, the theft and traceability issues. They're quite major challenges in the informal ones.
So the African continent is said to be the most expensive region globally to send money to when we're speaking about remittances. And so when we speak about the risks of the informal remittance, should we call it sector for lack of a better expression, how then do we plug the gap? What is the solution? Is it mobile money? How has the introduction of mobile money actually changed the landscape?
Mobile money has actually changed a lot. It's more instant. If you go like to Mkuru, it also deals with mobile numbers. EcoCash deals with mobile money. It's more instant. Because if you're sending from your point, automatically the person, wherever they are, even being the rural areas in the country they're in, it's instant and they can receive it. And all they have to do is just go and collect. So mobile money has been a bit more convenient, and it's a bit more effective than the Western Unions and the banks. Because with the banks, one person can receive money, and if there's no bank institution in your area, you're going to have to travel to go and collect the money. So the instant mobile has been more prompt, because now these mobile operators, they're creating small booths in those even remote areas, so at least people can collect money there. So it's become more convenient.
Mm-hmm. Gondai, maybe let's look at, or is there such as investment remittances, and how does that rather then work?
Yes, I can speak from business side here in Zimbabwe. There has been investment remittances that have happened, but these are for small businesses, the small capital intense businesses, whereby I've known some people get some remittances in the form of $400 to $500 for their literature books, where they're writing literature for their research and the printing and the publications. Some have done for small food industries, whereby one starts baking and they're baking for a small scale, but they're doing it home-based. Others are doing small chicken projects for the sustainability that they do sell commercially, but also at a small level. But these remittances at a small level are quite investment. There are researches being done that I know as well, whereby people are finding out those who've gotten some investment to start small businesses using that.
Overall, because we can rather identify the many problems that are there, but we must equally come up with solutions. So I guess in closing up the conversation, your solutions or policy recommendations?
Well, I would take the Nigeria case study on the diaspora bond. I would take that as a policy, whereby governments and businesses should look at that to help them build businesses and even communities, getting that diaspora bond. Another solution would be to engage these financial institutions at a large scale to try and work the interoperability, whereby sending money and receiving money shouldn't be much of a hassle, because this is promotions of economics around. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's scary that other countries are getting economically strong whilst others are losing money, but at the end of the day, we're supposed to be one globe, and the United Nations did make those SDGs so that all of us can come together and grow.
Gondai, thank you very much for your contribution. Gondai Ronald Bangidza is a seasoned development practitioner.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Business of Africa podcast, where we bring big and small business issues right to your doorstep. You'll hear from us again in the next fortnight, God willing. Bahaichu, Bula.